Susan Smith denied parole. 30 years after drowning her two sons. Columbia SC AP. On Wednesday, a parole board unanimously decided that Susan Smith, who killed her two young sons by rolling her car into a South Carolina lake 30 years ago, will remain in prison. Smith, now 53, pleaded for her release, citing her belief that God has forgiven her for the crime. This was Smith's first parole hearing since being convicted of murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. Although the jury spared her from the death penalty, South Carolina law allows her to request a parole hearing every 2 years after serving 30 years behind bars. Smith addressed the board via video link, breaking down in tears as she expressed remorse. "I know what I did was horrible," she said, her voice shaking. "I would give anything to change it." The board questioned Smith about the extensive efforts made to locate her sons during the investigation. Smith admitted she was scared and didn't know how to tell them the truth. In her final appeal, Smith referenced her faith. "God is a big part of my life," she said. "I ask that you show that kind of mercy as well." Prosecutors and about 15 others, including Smith's ex-husband and the boy's father, David Smith, strongly opposed her release. David Smith, who carried a photo of their sons Michael, 3, and Alex, 14 months, pinned to his jacket, emotionally argued against parole. "She had free choice," he said, pausing to collect himself. "This wasn't a tragic mistake. She changed my life forever that night." David Smith vowed to attend every parole hearing to ensure his sons are not forgotten. The crime that shocked the nation. In October 1994, Susan Smith made international headlines when she falsely claimed that a black man had carjacked her vehicle with her sons inside. Her fabricated story played into racial stereotypes and fueled a massive search effort. For 9 days, Smith tearfully pleaded for her children's safe return. Authorities eventually discovered the truth. Smith had let her car roll down a boat ramp into John D. Long Lake while her sons were strapped in their car seats. Investigators later recreated the incident, revealing it took 6 minutes for the car to submerge completely. The boys' bodies were found inside, their hands pressed against the windows. Prosecutors argued that Smith killed her children to continue an affair with a wealthy man who had ended their relationship, citing her children as the obstacle. Smith's defense claimed she was suffering from severe mental health issues and initially intended to die alongside her sons, but changed her mind at the last moment. A controversial parole hearing. Smith's attorneys argued that untreated mental health struggles during her teenage years contributed to her actions. They pointed out her lack of prior criminal history, suggesting she posed a low risk to the public. However, former prosecutor Tommy Pope maintained that Smith's actions and her lack of genuine remorse demonstrated otherwise. "It's always been about Susan," Pope said, referencing her courtroom demeanor during the trial and her continued controversial behavior in prison. Smith's allegations against a fictitious black man also led to racial profiling during the investigation, with innocent black men being stopped by police. This aspect of the case left a lasting impact, contributing to the widespread public outrage. Life in prison. While in prison, Smith has been involved in numerous scandals, including having inappropriate relationships with guards and violating policies by sharing personal contacts with a documentary producer in exchange for potential financial compensation. Smith remains eligible for parole hearings every 2 years. For now, however, her parole has been denied, leaving David Smith and his family with some relief. "In 2 more years, we'll go through this again," David Smith said. "But for now, she'll stay behind bars."
She came pretty close to causing me to end my life because of the grief that she brought upon me. But thankfully she didn't. I understand back in 95 that through the state's law, life imprisonment, 30 years to life. And now that's different, but at that time, that's what counts. I understand that. But ultimately to me, that's only 15 years per child. Her own children. It's just not enough. So I'm asking that you please deny her parole today. And hopefully in the future, but specifically today. Not let her out. I miss them very much. And I love them very much. And I will be here every 2 years going forward to ensure that their death